Hey, what's going on, everybody? Welcome to Two Coaches. Today, we're going to be talking about intermittent fasting, what it is, how it's used, how to screw it up, and how to do it right.
What it is. Two coaches. Two coaches.
Flawless. Excellent. All right, man. You
Hey,
ready?
look, just because the question came up, and I'm just, feeling so talkative today.
Oh, no. Uh-oh.
We'll put a song together eventually. Somebody asked me, they were like, I like the intro. That was the first thing they said.
Hey, the intro is good.
Like, why bring up the podcast then? Hey, I saw you were doing a podcast. I was like, yeah. I like the intro. I was like,
Get out of here with your passive aggressiveness. Now, whoever you are, if you're listening to this now.
Thank you.
Yeah, thank you for listening. Appreciate you.
Hey, you know who it is.
What's their full name?
No, I can't tell you. The address is
All right, guys. So today we're going to be talking
it's my
about...
address. It's Bianca. No, just kidding.
That would.
It was my wife.
Yeah, that would be something. That would be something she would do.
Intermittent fasting.
Yes, intermittent fasting. So real quick, before we jump into it, intermittent fasting. Intermittent fasting is where you, on a 24-hour cycle, you don't eat for a chunk of time, and then you eat all of your macros, you eat all of your food that you need to eat in a given window, right? And then once you're done with that window, you start your fast again, and you continue on about your happy life. Have you, Coach Michael, ever put anybody on intermittent fasting? You ever used it? Put anybody on it?
Yes. I was trying to think of like a cryptic way to be like, kind of. Yes, I definitely have.
Yeah.
I think in the beginning of being a trainer, I was just having a conversation with Pete.
Yeah.
About this. And like for those of you who don't know, Pete, triathlon, Ironman coach, full of knowledge. What are you guys talking about today? I was like, we're gonna do a conversation about intermittent fasting. He was like, I've got like 3 papers on that.
Oh, really?
Yeah. I was like, I'll have to read those.
Well, what the hell, is he free? We could pull him in here. Next time.
But like talking to him about it. What's up, Pete? It takes now at this stage in training, the education is paramount. To as a trainer, from a trainer standpoint, yes, I've put people on it. No, I haven't done it 100%. Meaning that obviously that we followed the rules. We did what we were supposed to be doing as far as the timing goes. But I think overall, and not on their part, from a trainer standpoint, on my part, not making sure that they weren't staying in a malnourished state.
Right.
Of course, they're getting their calories because I'm on their butt about it, and I'm making sure that they are hitting the numbers that they're supposed to hit.
Right.
But healthfully, nutritionally, way better now than it ever was.
Awesome. So
have you put people on it?
I have, and I've also tried it before. And to a certain extent, I do it now. But people who come in here and they we put them onto a macro-based plan and they're in a caloric deficit and they're hitting all the numbers that they need to hit. If they're still not getting the results that they want, intermittent fasting is kind of my go-to to get them to get off the plateau that they're currently on. And the reason is because intermittent fasting messes around with your hormones quite a bit. It allows for people who have things like metabolic syndrome, or where if they have if their insulin sensitivity is weird, intermittent fasting can help them do weight loss, help them do fat loss.
It has a lot of health benefits,
even if they haven't been able to do it. Oh yeah, there's tons.
So I think so I just referencing in my brain, which I've been doing a lot lately. Bianca and I finished our 75-day.
Oh, huzzah! Yeah.
Finished our 75-day challenge.
That is the first time I've ever yelled huzzah.
Have you always wanted to?
You know what? There's never been a burning desire to.
Is that a pirate word?
No. Huzzah? No. Huzzah is...
I don't know why I think maritime language would involve huzzah.
You know what? Maybe it is huzzah.
No.
Was that in Pirates of the Caribbean?
There's like 12 of those movies.
I know.
Have you seen the last one?
No.
Terrible.
I do
It's
not
awful.
want. I did not want to do it.
Awful. It's like the last Star Wars.
I'm trying to remember the song.
It's like the last Star Wars.
Oh,
They were just like, let's do another one.
I haven't seen that one either. Palpatine is alive in the last Star Wars. Spoiler alert.
Oh, you just ruined it for so many people.
Yeah. Well, you find out in the first 3 minutes anyway, so enjoy. That's when I stopped watching.
I told Bianca called me and was like, it was after a work night, right? So Friday or Saturday. She was working late and she was like, "What are you doing?" I was like, "Oh, I'm watching." I had just woken up. I was like, "I'm watching the last Star Wars." She was like, "Without me?" I was like, "Spoiler alert, it's terrible."
You're not missing much, baby.
I said, "I watched the beginning and then I'm waking up and watching the end." I said,
You fell asleep?
Yeah.
You fell asleep
I was
halfway
like,
through?
they're making out though, so I guess they're not related. Which you already know, but I was just
I don't know, man.
I was lost. Anyways,
Luke kissed Leia in the first one. Spoilers again.
people are like, "What is Star Wars?"
Anyway, you were telling you finished your huzzah. You finished your first.
We finished our 75 days. So I like throughout my like I just told my brother. My brother had messaged. Well, we hung out and then we had talked about it, and he was like, he's amped, right? He was like, let me know. 15 days out of your 75 days, I'll do it.
Oh, hell yeah.
So I purposefully did it to where he has to continue. He's like on day 9 and I'm done. Surprise.
Still, Gibby, what a badass.
Yeah. And he's getting all shredded up and ripped up and he's kicking ass.
That's awesome, man.
Super proud of him. But I was thinking like throughout my 75 days, you have to solidify, not the 75 days, but as far as what we're talking about with the intermittent fasting, and any nutritional diet, fitness program, whatever trainer you're working with, like you have to solidify at some point and in some frame of reference, you need to be able to recall back to what it is that your goals are.
Right.
Small, short-term, long-term, end. And like the ideas of 75 days hard for people who have looked it up, it's intense for sure. And I have definitely lost weight, lost fat, become more fit, but more importantly, my initial goal when I was writing down my stuff, like Bianca's was like to get after it, and she did, man, riding her bike every day and all that stuff, and following a vegan diet, like whatever the heck you're doing, it has to be purposeful. And mine was to be more present in the things that I'm doing, be more intentional for everything. All of it. And that's hard. It's hard because it's so much easier just to be like, I'm going to jump on this diet.
Right.
So now at this point in my training, intermittent fasting, I still have people go on it. If I think it is a beautiful way, not for everybody, but a beautiful way to have some essence of a routine.
Yes.
We've talked about that before in a previous episode too, like people who are like, well, I really want to do this, but I work, from 8 p.m. to 8 a.m. Monday through Saturday. And I'm like, listen, that is a terrible schedule as far as reality goes, for sure. That sounds awful. However, if these fitness goals are real, there's our time frame. Here's when you're awake.
Yeah.
Let's flip it. Will you have moments where you're gonna have go have a lunch or a party or whatever with your family, or it's the middle of the day? Or of course, for sure. Like I remember my dad working night shifts like crazy and then being awake still
during the day.
Yeah, coming to watch football practice or going to eat like a family dinner or whatever. And I'm like thinking as a little kid, like this dude hasn't slept in like
3 days.
Yeah. But so like if you can solidify your routine, your time frame, your lifestyle, and then implement intermittent fasting.
Right.
Intermittent fasting, it's not so much of these just rules that you have to follow. It can be a lifestyle thing.
Yeah, well, eventually it's got to be. So intermittent fasting is something that you can do for the rest of your life. It's not a diet at all. It's an eating protocol. It's a timing of when you take in your food. And when you time out your food, it messes around with the way that the way that your hormones are produced. So, get out your pencils, get out your pencils and pen and pad, everybody, because if you've ever been
About to take you to school.
yeah, if you've ever been considering doing intermittent fasting, we're going to give you a real quick crash course in it. Intermittent fasting is where you don't eat for a window of time and then you get all your macros in on a given eating period. The initial eating period that you want to start off with, on the whole, everyone's a little bit different and every coach recommends something slightly different, but the base start is going to be a 16 8-hour split. That means you have an 8-hour eating window and a 16-hour fast after each eating window. So if you start eating at noon, you'll have until 8 p.m. to stop eating, and then you go to bed and you start your fast. Once you're asleep, you've officially started your fast. Once you stop eating, you officially started your fast, but it's easiest to do when you're asleep. Can't get in trouble if you're asleep. And so you stop eating, go unconscious, and then when you wake up, you don't eat again until noon. So people who are really, really busy, or they have a super early morning, or they don't like to eat breakfast, intermittent fasting already naturally fits kind of nicely into that type of schedule.
I think even if you are lazy,
Yes.
Let's say
that's why I started it.
For real, let's say you lack some discipline, and for some reason, yourself included, you're like, I just don't eat breakfast. I've never really been a big breakfast. Shut up, all right? Either eat breakfast or that's perfect. You don't have to eat till 12.
Yeah.
Boom.
Done. And you're on a plan, and that plan is it lends itself really nicely to a solidified routine. If you, kind of as a caveat, if you have a very fluid schedule, if you're kind of all over the place and you wake up at different times, then intermittent fasting may be a little bit more difficult for you to implement. But it might still be doable, but it would just be more difficult to do continuously throughout your weeks.
I think one of the big things too, as far as what we're talking about, getting the basics down, things you want to take note of, your body. And it seems common sense, but when you stop and think about it, you're like, oh yeah, I didn't think about that. It has to correlate with your activity level,
Very true.
And even as a trainer, I know plenty of trainers who are out there, preaching certain diets or applying specific protocols to people that might not fit for that individual, but generally they're good. Yeah. Generally it works.
Yeah.
So the cases that you have to be a little bit more specific with somebody are less, as opposed to telling somebody like, I don't want you to go on a diet, like blah blah. I get it. I agree. I was talking to some of our members the other day. I was like, I think that. How do you feel about your challenge? I was like, I think I'm emotionally finally at a point where I'm not going to diet anymore. But you have to be...
That's badass.
And it's still going to take... I'm still going to be pinpointing things, but I feel 100%, for the first time in a long time, 100% confident on my ability to not follow a specific plan because my routine is a little bit more solidified, right?
And so you can rely on your routine as opposed to a papered plan.
And I think the intermittent fasting is it can really, really work if you take the time to pay attention to how active you're going to be, mm-hmm. when you're going to sleep and be awake, what your lifestyle, and you can't be like, well, sometimes, what about a birthday party? Yeah, that's once a year for sure. For at least the person that you referenced in your brain. Don't set yourself up for failure already.
Right.
Figure out how successful you can be and if it's going to work for you.
Yeah, and be realistic.
Your body burns, right? Your body starts to chisel away, and it takes in this nutrients, it takes in the energy, and it starts producing this energy for you, right? Once that glucose is depleted, and we'll talk a little bit about it, but once that glucose is depleted, eventually your body starts to chip into the adipose tissue. It starts to chip into the fat.
Yeah.
And I think so many people are like, that's what I need. I need that.
Yeah.
So they start not eating.
All the time.
Yeah. So then and then their window comes around, and they're either I feel it's not always cooked so black and white, but like it's one or the other. I feel like a majority of people are malnourished because they're eating crappy.
Right.
They're like, I like to break my fast with a pizza. For sure, that works for some individual somewhere. And then the other side of it is, I'm eating, all my calories. I'm eating everything I'm supposed to be eating, but maybe it's not nutrient dense.
Right. It's tons of calories without a whole lot of nutrients.
Yeah. And that kind of falls under the same category as the first person, but like I think a lot of people break their fast inappropriately.
Yeah. So we should talk about that though. What is breaking your fast? So break fast. That blew my mind the first time I heard it. So when
When's
you
the first time you heard breakfast? Or
I
that
was
break fast?
I
Sorry.
was 27.
Shut up. You were like, break.
Let's see. How old was I last Thursday?
Break fast.
So when you have breakfast, right? When you break your fast, doesn't matter what time of day it is. What you're doing is you are spiking your insulin levels. So when you eat, right, you're taking in all the nutrients that you need for rebuilding the muscles that you've broken down, restoring your glycogen levels, which is what the energy that you use immediately when you're in the gym, lifting heavy weights, that kind of thing. And you're replenishing all those stores of energy. And then when you go into your fast, the idea is that after a certain amount of time, you go into fat burning mode. Intermittent fasting keeps you in fat burning mode longer, and therefore you start to bust into that adipose tissue, and you go into a process called lipolysis, which is actually when you lose fat. So that's the overarching kind of simple breakdown of it.
Yeah.
But you mentioned glucose levels and everything. So for all of you nerds like me out there, if you want to know the actual chemistry behind it, the way that it works is when you're looking at weight loss, it's really, really important to be specific with what you're talking about, right? So nobody wants to lose weight. You can cut your hair and lose weight. Well, you can. I've already done that. But people don't want to lose weight. They want to lose fat, right? They don't want to just worry about water weight. They want to worry about fat. And that process is something called lipolysis. And lipolysis is governed by five hormones. There's a lot more that goes into it, but you could argue that there's a big five, right? You have testosterone, estrogen, cortisol, insulin, and then something called hormone-sensitive lipase. And of those five, the big Mac daddy of them when it comes to lipolysis is insulin. Insulin is produced in your pancreas, and when you eat, specifically carbs, that pancreas pumps out a bunch of insulin. Insulin builds, it can be used in muscle building, but for this conversation, we're focusing on the fat. It's anabolic. It builds fat. So when you have a lot of insulin in your body, for a prolonged amount of times, you put on a bunch of fat. Your body creates a bunch of fat. It's a fat-storing hormone. On the flip side of that, when you do something like fasting, intermittent fasting, or keto, when you go into ketosis, it takes those insulin levels and it drops them down as low as they can possibly go for as long as possible. And when your body is in a caloric deficit and there's an absence of insulin, then you can do lipolysis. Your body goes into the fat cells, it pulls the triglycerides, and you lose fat. You burn, baby, burn. And that's the benefit what's one of the benefits of intermittent fasting. There's a lot of other really, really cool stuff as well.
You had mentioned specifically carbs, right? That's one thing I think is that gets lost in the mire. Keto, intermittent fasting.
Right.
A lot of people, when you talk to them, they go hand in hand. You know, they're two sides of the same coin kind of thing for a lot of people, I think.
Right.
You cannot. And I didn't know this. I can literally remember reading it and being like, yeah, that's the right answer. And then not remembering that exact thing when it came to somebody asking.
Uh-huh.
You cannot break your fast with whatever the hell you want.
You're right.
And the more strategic you are with it and the more plan you have, the better off you're going to be overall if you have specific goals. If you're just trying it because you want to see what it does, it'll do something for sure.
Right.
But if you want to actually educate yourself on it, get with somebody, get some help, figure it out. However, the more, just like anything, the more plan you have, the more successful you're going to be, right?
Yeah.
One of my favorite quotes for anything, but specifically diets, fitness, health, lifestyle stuff, you have to absorb what is useful, freaking cast out what is not, and then apply your own unique things to it.
Okay.
So when it comes to intermittent fasting, you can read and read all the blogs you want, read all the informationals you want, and then you have to still be able to take the information that's going to apply to you specifically. Maybe you are trying to fix some diabetic issues, hormonal issues.
Right.
Maybe you are trying to cut some fat, or maybe you're, you've been working out for a while and you're like, all right, I'm going to try intermittent fasting to really lean out.
Right.
Whatever the case may be, whatever level of health or fitness or fat, or that fat that you obtain on your body, whatever it is that you're at, you have to be able to take your specific case, pinpoint the things that are going to work for you, plug in, research, and learn, and then apply your You have to apply yourself to it.
Right.
I think that's the biggest thing. So breaking your fast, a lot of people I think end up screwing themselves by eating whatever.
Right. Well,
Because once the I always tell people now I tell people more so, like once you break your fast, you're imagine the gate is open. It opens up and it starts pouring in, right? So if you're taking in those carbohydrates and the glycogen's going in and it's doing its thing and glucose is rushing, insulin's starting to spike, and you're also taking in a bunch of fat,
you're screwed.
it goes in.
Yeah.
It's not like, oh, I only want this. No. Like it's going to take it all in. It's going to use what it can immediately, and then it'll go to those glycogen stores and use those, and then it'll use that, and then maybe by the end of that fast, you'll make it to a little bit of lipid, like a little bit of fat usage before you're eating again.
Right.
And you're just cycling through. I've seen people who jump on intermittent fasting and they start to gain weight.
Yeah.
And then they're immediately like, well, intermittent fasting didn't really work for me.
Right.
I'm like, did it not? Or did you not really try to have it work for you?
So what he's talking about right now is when you have fasted, right? Your body is hungry. It wants to take in that nutrients. When you take
super sensitive.
It's
That's what
very, very, very sensitive. And so when you take in carbs, essentially what your cells are doing is they're opening that gate that you talked. I loved how you put that. So they're opening up this gate. And when you take in carbs, when you break your fast, specifically talking about when you break your fast, when you eat your carbs, if you take in something like protein at that moment, then those proteins are going to go into the cell and they're going to do all their crazy protein magic, and it's going to be really, really beneficial for the body. But if at the beginning of your eating window you eat a bunch of carbs and then take in a shit ton of fat as well, then guess where that fat's going? It's going to right up into the cell, and yeah, it can make the process. It can just really, really gum up the process. So if you, we're getting way more detailed than I had planned on.
I really didn't think I was going to.
Dude,
when you asked me,
it.
I was like, I don't want to talk about intermittent fasting. And then we start one of the things we were talking about for our podcast, and then like getting feedback from other people too, is like the organic idea of a conversation. We were talking about like the Joe Rogan podcast and some of these other ones that we like to watch.
Who is Joe Rogan?
He's
I'm just kidding.
he looks kind of like.
Is he bald?
He doesn't have a sweet beard though.
Not yet. He's coming to Texas. Did you know that?
No.
Yeah, he's coming to Texas.
Somebody referenced to him the other day. They called him the King of Apes.
The King of Apes.
And, you know, like, for anybody else, I would think they would be like, wow, I can't believe somebody called me that. And I feel like he would be like... they go on about his day.
I can only hope so.
That's true. So, what were we talking about?
Intermittent fasting.
Oh, right. When you were asking me about it, I was like, man, I don't want to get all sciencey about it. But we were talking about the organics, the organic aspect of a conversation.
Right.
And that's how we want to keep our podcast. Like, we obviously want to have some, you and I specifically will tangent ourselves into nothingness if we're not careful. And I think those people, like people who know us will be like, there they go again, talking about a bunch of bullshit.
And the bullshit is real. The very first sound check we ever did when we were just testing out the equipment and everything, we talked about Oompa Loompas, I think, for 35 minutes. I'm not joking. I wish I was exaggerating.
We did. I just feel so bad for them.
I know.
But you got to be able to, it's relatable. You got to be able to apply yourself to what it is that you're investing yourself into. Right. You can't just be like, I'm going to do this. And not. You can't be like, let me learn about Oompa Loompas and not feel for their strife and struggle.
I thought you were going back to intermittent.
Right. Intermittent. But I think what happens is like what I was talking about with like applying yourself to it. If you can just research a little bit on your own, you'll figure out a lot. However, if you can get some help, and work as a team with a trainer or with friends and the internet, forget it. Like you'll get it figured out. Our cells being surrounded by fats already, being surrounded by lipids, like
right.
You open up those gates, you pour in the carbohydrates, you pour in the fats. You have to have some kind of plan in order to be successful. And I am telling you from personal perspective, like personal experience being like, I'm really trying, but like I'm not really trying. Like I'm trying this much,
Right.
and I'm getting this much results, and
Right.
I'm upset this much.
Right.
You know, so
That's actually super common.
yeah, everybody does it. Everybody does it, and I think people who are hyper successful, being hyper aware of what it is that they're doing, and starting to be real conscious of things, and making these decisions, whether it's for the gram, or it's for the dollar bills, or it's for actually like a passion.
Yeah.
Not that the latter is less important. I think it's just less common.
Yeah.
Which makes it really easy to lose sight of what your focus is. So if somebody's like, hey, I want to try intermittent fasting, and you're like, let me tell you how to do it, and then you don't follow up with them or make sure that it fits for them specifically.
As a coach, you mean?
Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, so.
But it really is. I really think it's a good way to, any of them are really good ways to approach a lifestyle, as long as you try to figure out what your best fit is going to be, and don't apply whatever it is you need to do. Don't apply the word diet to it.
Right.
Don't apply the word time frame even is good. Like I get it. I get 75 days. We just did it.
Right.
Like I get focusing on a time frame. But if you're not focused on the end goal the whole time while you're doing these small things, when you get there, you'll be like, I did it. Or you'll be like, well, that was a failure. That didn't work.
Yeah. Or you'll forget halfway through, which is what we see a lot of times as well. So intermittent fasting, here's who it's useful for. If you are somebody who has a really solid schedule already, and you are able to build a routine for yourself really, really, really well, intermittent fasting is going to lend itself really nicely to you. If you don't have that, if you have a real flexible schedule, your shifts are all over the place at work, whatever, you can absolutely still do it, but you're going to have some obstacles that you need to overcome because of that schedule. Also, if you have been you've been dieting, you've been quote unquote dieting for a while, and you're not seeing the results that you want to see, intermittent fasting can be very, very useful. Sorry about that. Intermittent fasting can be really, really useful to try and get you out of that plateau and onto the next level, because it messes around with the hormones just enough to solve any of those issues that might be preventing you from losing fat. And here's how you do it. Here's how you get started. Crash course. The gateway intermittent fasting window.
Pick back up your pencils.
Pick back up them pencils.
They were like Oompa Loompas.
Oompa Loompas. Are they talking about Oompa Loompas? Okay, put down the pencil. Pick those pencils back up. Here we go. If you're looking to get started in intermittent fasting, the typical window to the gateway window is going to be a 16 8-hour split, meaning that regardless of the time of day that you start eating, you could start at midnight, you could start at noon, you could start at 2 p.m., it doesn't matter, but you're going to go 8 hours from the time that you begin eating. Once 8 hours are up, you stop eating no matter what, and then you begin your fast. You don't eat again until 16 hours have passed. That's your initial start window. After that, you can play around with it a little bit more. The more advanced fasters will have a smaller eating window, and there are some health benefits to that. There's some hormonal benefits to that, but we'll tackle that later.
Yeah.
When you break, so you're fasting, you go to bed, you wake up, you're not eating. While you are in that fast, you can drink water, you could drink plain tea, just regular tea, and black coffee. Literally everything else, diet sodas, everything else is in a weird gray area. It might spike your insulin. It might not. It depends on the individual, and it depends on what scientific study you're reading. But black coffee, plain tea, and water, the consensus is they're golden. They won't break a fast.
Somebody came to me with a study one time, and they were like, aspartame doesn't actually raise your insulin levels. And I was like, yeah, but didn't you tell me that you don't like aspartame like 6 months ago?
Yeah. Unfortunately, a lot of times when you get into like the literature of it, you do have to do quite a bit of sifting, and you have to look at it with a critical eye. But as far as what for sure is safe, coffee, water, and plain tea. Green tea is great. You can have during your fast. Once it's time to break your fast, you want to start. I don't know how detailed we should get with it. Some people like to raise the acid level in their gut. Yeah, so they'll do some water, some like warm water and lemon, so that their digestion is a little bit easier. You don't have to do that. But when you start with your fast, you want to start with your protein and maybe some carbs. As you go into your eating period, then you can start introducing the fats and everything like that. You'll hear a lot of other coaches who might be the exact opposite of that. It does depend, but that's a good way that we've seen to be successful, and that's it. That's all you do. Pitfall though, I know you have a bunch. I know you have a bunch of pitfalls, but. That might pertain to intermittent fasting, but one of the main ones that I've seen and that I had trouble with was not eating enough during that eating window.
Yeah.
Make sure that you are getting the right amount of calories and the right amount of protein, specifically, in that eating window, and you're fitting it within those 8 hours. One of the problems is that they're like, well, I only get to eat this much. They'll have a sandwich. They'll have like a ham sandwich and call it a day.
Yeah.
And those people are going to be under eating, and they're going to hurt their results because of it. So be careful for those pitfalls. You still have to eat your food. It's a timing protocol.
Yeah.
Nothing more.
I think one of the big ones too, like let's say, whatever the case may be, maybe there's not somebody that you trust immediately next to you or whatever, or it's too expensive or whatever the case may be. Do not let anything get in the way of you figuring out more about this protocol if you're interested in it. Go online, find a macro calculator, plug it in, put in your information. Don't be a liar. Don't put it. If you're working a construction job, just kicking ass all day long, burning calories, don't put in there like, oh, I work out very lightly. And they're like, oh, well, eat these 1,200 calories. And you're struggling with weight loss, like you're gonna screw yourself.
Right.
You'll see weight loss for about a week or two, maybe a month at the most, before your body before you're a dumpster fire inside.
Yeah. Before you're absolutely screwed your numbers.
So, as far as the basics of it goes, go onto the internet and plug in some information and figure out some basics. You can watch YouTube videos on how to weigh your food out if you want to get real specific, and make sure that maybe for that first week or two that you're trying to do these fasts, measure everything out and make sure that you're getting as close as possible to what the recommended amount of calories are, and weigh everything out.
That's a fantastic
and then
suggestion.
after that week, after those 3 days, I don't care what you do. Don't use it as an excuse to say, like, oh, I want to try this, but I don't really, I don't know how to weigh food. I don't know how. All right. Like, I understand. It's scary and it's different.
It's a pain in the ass.
And it's freaking work.
Yeah.
Take some time. You owe it to yourself, especially if you, I know a lot of people that are in my circle that are like, they're freaking fit and they can perform and they have fat on their bodies. Myself included. There's a lot it's the application of a process for a duration of time to be able to apply it to your lifestyle.
Right.
And then be like, oh yeah, and then next thing you know, people are like, wow, how do you do what you do? You're like, oh, I just, I've got a good mental focus and I'm super disciplined,
I was visited in a dream and now I can focus on it. No, you
they come around the back of the gym. You're like,
no, you focused in for several weeks and made yourself new habits.
I love it. Duration, time frame, goal-oriented stuff. Beautiful for sure. But you have to make sure that you have the right ideas about it. You know what I mean? And you can do what I said and go online and look up and you're like, okay, well, hey, I did what you said, but there's like 4 different calculators.
Reach on out, baby.
Nah, not even that. Like 5th grade, dude. Like take those 4 numbers and do the, what is it called? The average?
Yeah.
Math,
Do some math.
But like, if you really need some help, ask.
Yeah.
Don't hesitate. Ask whoever, and I'm sure somebody will know somebody who can help you figure it out. But if you're going to apply this to your lifestyle, or you're going to try to get your lifestyle oriented around intermittent fasting, like, it's going to take a little bit of work.
Yep.
Even at the bare minimum, you'll see some success. And then out of it, you can figure out what the next step is. Right. We won't get too far into it, but like, Bianca started doing alternate day fasting.
Oh yeah, you were telling me about that.
I've already had good friends of mine. I've already had a couple of good friends of mine be like, that is such a terrible idea, blah, blah, blah. And I'm like, well, why? And then when we talked about it, I love you. When we talked about it, I get it. You've had bad experiences with it because people weren't being honest.
Right.
People were like, yeah, I'm totally eating what I'm supposed to. No, like we live in the same house. Like,
Yeah.
I'm like, if I didn't eat enough, I know you didn't eat enough.
Right,
For real, because I'm eating most of the day, and I know you haven't seen you eat at all. She's kicking butt. She's doing great. You have to be able to apply whatever protocol you're going to use. Today we're talking about intermittent fasting specifically, but you have to be able to apply whatever protocol you're going to decide to apply to your life with that fitness level, with that activity, with that daily schedule, with whatever. You have to be mindful and flexible enough to be able to fit it into that specific regimen. And boom, all of a sudden there's results happening. And you're like, I don't know, I didn't really change much. You changed a whole lot. You changed a whole lot just by being more focused on what the hell it was you were doing.
Right. That's beautifully said, man.
I do love it though. Like you were at like for real when you asked, like every time we talk about nutritional stuff, my immediate thought in my brain, and maybe it's because of the 75 days that I feel better about it, but like my immediate thought is like, you don't need to do no stupid diet. Don't jump on what. But I get it because I've been in that before I was training. I remember, and I kicked ass. Like I did great without any guidance except the internet and writing things down.
Yeah.
Like, all right, well, alcohol, I'll have to cut that out. Like ice cream, I'll have to cut that out. And I cut out a bunch of things. And I wasn't miserable because I was in a mindset where I was like, I'm gonna kill this thing.
Right.
And I did it. And I kind of fasted too, without really knowing what it was at the time. I didn't eat. I couldn't eat based on my school schedule until about noon, 1 o'clock.
Yeah.
And then I had to be on that desk to work the night shift at 8, 9 o'clock at the latest. Easy. Monday through Friday, 5 days out of the week. Like I was forced to sit. And I there was a couple nights there where I had some snacks. I can definitely think of at least 1 or 2 nights where I was like, yeah, large pepperoni. No, the dorms. Yeah, bring it to the dorms. Yeah, I'll let you in. Like it's interesting to me because I think a lot of times, even as trainers, we get lost in the ideas of dieting, and we want people to be successful.
Yeah.
And then we kind of screw them emotionally, mentally, because they did this great thing for 6 months. And then they gained 30 pounds afterwards. They lost 20 and gained 30.
That's actually a really good episode in and of itself, man. The
yo-yos?
Yeah. How to prevent a yo-yo diet. We should write that one down as well.
Yo-yo diet, yo-yo fitness.
Mm-hmm. Because what will happen is...
Yo-yo happiness? For real, that's what happens.
I thought you were making a joke. I
No.
You were like, yo happiness?
No, like I feel like that's a huge aspect of diet and nutrition. We're talking about food, fitness, and focus, right?
Yep.
And we're in here trying to keep people on the positive sides of those notes. And then you forget about some of the simplicities of somebody failing at something because of, not being disciplined or not having the right guidance or whatever the case may be, and then taking that as their new end all to something.
Right.
You apply that now to intermittent fasting. Well, intermittent fasting failed me.
Right. And now it's never going to work for you. Well, maybe you did it wrong.
And then people are like, hey, I'm thinking about intermittent. Oh, it's garbage. Don't do it. It didn't work for me. Shut up. Mind your own business.
Let them go. Let them climb the mountain themselves a little bit. Yeah, man. That's awesome. If you out there have any questions or when you do your research, which, oh my God, yes, to Michael's point, do it. Go out there and look and see what there is to see. If you have any questions beyond that, let us know. We can absolutely set you up on a good plan. But the beautiful thing about intermittent fasting is that it's really, really simple. Yeah. You have an eating window, you have a fasting window, and you work within that window. Make sure you're eating all your food. At the end of the day, that's what it boils down to. And you'll see a good amount of benefit just from that surface level of understanding and putting that into practice.
People who are close to us and are listening. Oh, I knocked both of those. People who are close to us and are listening, let me know. Let us know. I do intermittent fasting. This is how I do it. This is what works for me. I don't believe in intermittent fasting. Whatever the case may be, like whatever your view, I want to know. Just because it's interesting to me, like the more references you have to kind of yes, you can get lost in it for sure. You can be like, well, this person says this and this person says that. Any one person's only telling you what they know from their experience and what's worked and what the science says. And that even still is variable based on the individual. So like the basics of it, you have your timing, you have your windows. Yes, there's different windows, right? Body goes into this fasting starvation kind of mode, starts to burn through the glucose.
Yep.
And it starts to rip through that. Once that energy stores are depleted, if you're not putting that right back into it immediately and you're in this fasting state, it'll eventually, after a few, days, maybe after a week at the most, it'll start to reach into those fat stores. For some people, it's so fast.
Oh, yeah.
I have friends
Chemistry, baby.
Yeah, man. I used to work at the ranch, right? At the ranch, easy. You put somebody on a quick fast for the month, 2 months that they're there at the ranch. As long as I learned that too along the way. As long as you're explaining to them like, hey, this is a pretty good protocol for long term if you want to continue it. However, if you decide to stop when you leave, here's what could happen. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
People would dive right in. Dive on in. They would dive right into it, man, and they would start seeing results within the next couple days.
Yeah.
All of a sudden, when
it's extremely powerful.
Yeah. Yeah. So, but for those, for people who are interested in it, make sure that you follow that eating window. Make sure that you figure out some information on it. Know that it's going to take a little while, especially if you're not as active, to burn through those glycogen stores. Then after that, if you're not careful, you can start eating into protein and lose muscle, depending on how fit you might be too. There's a lot of different things that you can look at. But when it comes down to it, you fast, your body goes into the fast, it burns through the energy, and then when you break that fast, you restore it with some good nutrient-valued calories that it allows the body to learn, all right, we're cleaning out this gut. Here's our time frame. Let's use this storage, couple that with some weight training. Your muscles are like, well, we'll just stay here then we'll just stay here if you're going to keep doing this, you know what I mean? Yeah, there's some fine-tuning points that you can work on. Yeah. But overall, it's good. It's funny too, like talking about it through this conversation. I'm like, okay, yeah, like intermittent fasting's pretty great, pretty great. Unless you look at it as a diet.
Yeah. Well, the other beautiful thing about it is that you can tack it on to just about anything. So if you're doing keto, you could do intermittent fasting. If you're doing carb cycling, you could do intermittent fasting. If you're doing basic macros, if it fits your macros, you could do intermittent fasting. It's an eating protocol. It's very, very versatile. It fits any schedule that is consistent, and it has a huge amount of benefits. So take a look into it. If you have been on a plateau for a while and you've been really getting after it, take a look at something like intermittent fasting. I know for me, I didn't appreciate just how big a role the hormones played in stuff like fat loss. For a good chunk of my career, for the better half of my career, I didn't appreciate just how much hormones have to do with it. Intermittent fasting is one of the tools that directly target the hormones, the insulin levels in the body, and directly lowers them enough for something like lipolysis to take place. So go take a look.
We were talking about, I was talking with Victor and Iris.
Oh, yeah.
In our evening class. What's up, y'all?
Hi, Victor. Hi, Iris.
We were talking about the seemingly simple applications in life that you would always, like, for sure, reference in a business setting. Uh-huh. But then when it comes to life, you're like, I don't really have time. I don't really have time to sit and do a brain dump and brainstorm about ideas. But we're talking about doing something like that. That's something we're probably going to do here pretty quick, is just brain dump ideas onto one another so that we're not so full of like, what should we talk about? What should we think about? What should we be For those of you listening, thank you for that info, by the way, Victor. For those of you listening, like, please rate, please review us, please give us some feedback. I'll say it again, if you just don't like either one of us, shove off. There's something else to listen to. There's tons. If it's a face thing, I don't know, a viewpoint issue.
I can't imagine anybody having a problem with your face.
Shut up. But yeah, we're going to be doing these things, filling ourselves full of different points to talk from, and then we're going to prioritize things. So if there's something, especially if you're listening and you're like, I want to know what you guys think about this. Tell us.
Yeah, let
Us know. Shoot me a text if you need to. But rate, review, please reach out on whatever streaming service that you like to use. I will say this. Hey, we're fresh. We're just starting this thing.
Yeah, this is
and I'm
episode
having
6.
so much fun. But if you have, what the biggest one was Spotify.
Yeah.
You'll have to click the link, and then it'll be on your Spotify. Don't tell me that you haven't listened to it because you couldn't find it on Spotify.
Yeah. We post them up. Also, if you haven't jumped on our Facebook page or Instagram, go look us up. Two Coaches Podcast. You can find us right away on Facebook. Find us right away on Instagram, and we post all the links to how to listen to us. You can watch us. You can watch us do a recording of the show, or you could just listen good old fashioned podcast style. Yeah. Either way, it's a good time. Cool, man.
Right on.
All right, guys. Well, thank you so much for joining us. If you have any other questions about intermittent fasting, let us know. And also, in addition to what Coach Michael was talking about with rating us, reviewing us, share us around. Shoot this to somebody who's been thinking about intermittent fasting. There's a lot of good information to get you started just in this last 47 minutes. So go enjoy it. Cool, man.
Yeah, right on.
All right, guys. We'll see you next time.
Love you guys. Peace out.
Hey, what do you think of Biden choosing Kamala Harris as his vice?
Oh, my God.
Now on to the real conversation.
This guy. People are like, oh, God. Here they go. Look at all this sweat.
Look at all that.